Hey,
Mel,
Callum.
how you going?
I'm still here. I'm still in quarantine, going slightly batty if I have to tell the truth. And this is the highlight of my day is actually talking to you and seeing another human being. I'm on day 9, and very exciting tomorrow. I get to go out and have a PCR test. So it's really exciting
Wow.
because I can talk to the taxi driver, and then I can talk to the man who's going to stick something up my nostrils into my
Wow, that'll
brain.
be, yeah, really social butterfly for a day, won't you?
Yeah, okay, it's pretty sad, I know. Let's let's just get on with the show. So sorry, I'm grooving along to the music. It's just anything, just something besides
Yeah.
this. Have hardly been able to even sit outside, and I've been able to sit outside because I'm in a house, but it's been pelting down with rain so much in Brisbane. Today there's finally sunshine for the first time in a week, so
Unheard of.
I've been sitting outside almost all day just to get fresh air. Anyway, all good. First up, let's like the most important thing that is happening. And hello to everyone out there, by the way. Welcome to Timed Out for Sporting News. Callum Ferguson joining me. First of all, the really big news in the week is that Callum Ferguson has a new little baby.
Ah,
And that is
yes.
that. No, forget about Tim Paine, Pat Cummins. What the hell is
Yeah.
no, look at this. Look at this.
Oh, there he
There
is.
he is. Spencer Jane, look at him. He's sort of giving you a bit of a greasy eyeball there, isn't
He
he?
was, wasn't he? Yeah.
What are you
Look,
doing,
I
Dad?
actually think he was looking over my shoulder at his mother, who'd told him to smile for the camera, and he very quickly shut her down. And that's a look of I'll smile when I want, thanks.
Yeah, I
But
like it.
no, look, he's been an absolute gem so far. He's getting slowly into some routines, and he's feeding well. Mum pulled up really well too, Rhiannon. So look, everyone's healthy, which is all you can ask for, and certainly he's brought a lot of life to the household, and our daughter Layla's loving being a big sister. So it's all exciting.
Oh, the other important question: is he going to bat or bowl?
Look, I reckon he's going to bowl left arm orthos and slog them right-handed. I think, but it's
Ooh.
early. It is really early. Yeah, Layla's kicking right-footed and hitting balls with her left hand, and it's a bit all over the shop at the moment. So it's really hard to get a read early. But no, he's a pretty happy kid. So that's all I'm asking for, and I'm very happy to have him on board.
Yeah, you say that you'll get him in the nets as soon as possible, I'm sure. And
He'll
hello
play
to
whatever
every,
sport he wants, and he'll bowl and bat however he likes.
Hello. Look, if you are joining us, by the way, live, and you want to, yeah, congratulate Cal or ask us a question or make a comment, please just send us your questions in the live chat. And I can see our friend, one of our regular viewers, Trian Phone, says, "Congratulations, Cal. We have a new addition to the team." Yes, we
We do.
do.
New addition to the timed out crew.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, let's get stuck in because, funnily enough, it's been a big week in cricket. You might say an awful lot happening. First of all, there we are. The second most, or the second biggest news probably in Australia this week. Paine out, Cummins and Smith in to the leadership roles as far as a new captain and vice captain. What's been your reaction to the news? I mean, I was kind of astonished that Tim Paine was leaving the door open to play in the Ashes, and Cricket Australia had made it a purely selection-based decision. But in the end, you can imagine the scrutiny and everything else was just going to be too much for him, and possibly too much for the team as well.
Yeah, look, I think that may have been a major contributor to Payne's decision. I don't know that, but the fact that it was starting to look like it would be a significant distraction to the team may have contributed quite a bit to that decision, I think. But it's not a huge surprise, I don't think, that he's ended up deciding to step away. I mean, it's such a huge story. It's such a well publicised one now, and it's certainly blown up to the point where the Barmy Army are writing songs. I mean, that's never a good sign. So, look, I think it's the right move. I think for the Australian cricket team, but probably for Tim himself, to give his family, not just him, but his family, a chance to heal. You can only imagine how tough it's been for the entire family. So, look, I think it's a sensible decision, and you just hope that everyone's going to come out of this okay, particularly his wife, Bonnie, and you can imagine it's been a tough time for her. So, look, you hope it all pans out okay in the end, because these can be quite traumatic circumstances when your name's up in headlights, and certainly not for great reasons. So, but from an Australian team point of view, they've got a fine, upstanding young man in Pat Cummins taking over, who has a great reputation around Australian cricket as being the kind of guy who, when he speaks, people listen. He doesn't waste words, which is great, and certainly, to hear words like the ilk of Travis Heads the other day, where he came out and said, Pat Cummins oozes leadership, and that's the sort of stuff you want to hear. So I think that's enormously exciting for Australian cricket, and also I think it's great to see Steve Smith back into a leadership role. I think it's it was obviously a really tough road he faced a number of years ago after the Cape Town incident, but this is a great opportunity for him to come to the fore and help the team get back on its feet after a tough couple of weeks, and certainly the focus will be on that first day and how in the first test and how that mix with Pat Cummins works. I think it'll be great. My understanding is Pat Cummins requested Steve Smith have that role, so he's obviously got a lot of faith and trust in him. So I think that's a great thing that they've backed him in and given him what he wants, because I think that's what you need. Just like when the coaching team changes, you want to have that coach get the right people around him and the people he wants.
That's right. And I know there's going to be a duck sound. You can make the duck sound. You can do it. I'm just gonna add that it basically added a whole new fascinating narrative to the Ashes as well, because just to see how that dynamic works between Pat Cummins and Steve Smith, it was incredible to see Steve Smith refer to him as Patrick the whole way through their first. Patrick, I've never heard him call him Patrick before. It was suddenly so formal, and it was his body language. He was so deferential. So that's a really interesting dynamic. But other little things as well. I was thinking a bit about it, and I thought, where's Pat Cummins going to field? That's going to be really interesting to watch on first day, where he fields, and how is it going to work when he's fielding, when it comes to DRS reviews, and how's it going to work when he's bowling and there's a shout for an LBW that's not given. And then it's really quite fascinating to see sort of how that dynamic plays out. So, and then you've also got Pat Cummins bowling to Joe Root, number one bowler in the world, being the number one batter in the world at the moment. And that's just an amazing one. So there's all these lovely little subplots and narratives that will be really interesting to follow, I think, throughout the Ashes.
Absolutely.
First DRS decision. Watch out for that one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because Alex Carey, I think he's quite nice to bowlers. I can't imagine Alex Carey going, "No, mate, pull your head in." That was going down for sure. Height, mate, height.
Well, they need him to beat. They're going to need him to beat.
Yeah, be interesting. Hello to everyone who's coming on as well. Sam Colgan apologises for being late. That's okay, Sam. And Phil's F, our good friend Phil's, says, "Congratulations, mate, future Aussie opener." Well, there you go. So that's,
there you go, yeah.
Yeah, you go. Right, now, let's go on to our next topic then. And again, a big week. Still on the Australian men's team and the Ashes, have been confirmed today that Alex Carey has won the battle for the gloves. There was a fair bit made about, the contest between him and Josh Inglis, and maybe like a Matt Wade as an outsider or Jimmy Pearson, but it seemed to be really between those two. So Alex Carey very well, having played with him. How does that change the Australian team having him in the side rather than Tim Paine?
Well, it's an enormous change. You're losing your captain and your wicketkeeper in one swoop, and what you are gaining, though, is a very level-headed, highly professional, well-organised cricketer in Alex Carey. And the body of work Alex has put in over a long period of time now, 2 or 3 really big seasons, whether it's been with the Redbacks in the domestic competitions or whether it's been with the Australian team. He's been a really good contributor, sound contributor. Forgot the strikers there too. He's just a guy that oozes consistency now, and that's the kind of guy you want coming in. And it's not just consistency with performance, it's consistency as an individual and as a leader. And that, to me, just it adds so much to your dressing room. So I feel like he's the right fit for this team, for the direction that they're trying to go in. He's a fine, upstanding young man, much in a similar mould to Pat Cummins. They don't waste words, and when they speak, people listen. So that's, I don't think you can speak higher than that of an individual that's coming into any form of sport. Bringing those types of characters into your team, it's just a huge plus. The way he's played has historically been much in the mould of the, I wouldn't say generic Australian counter-punching, lower order wicketkeeper, but certainly, barring Tim Paine recently, we've had a lot of that style coming through in the wicket-keeping department, and it's great to see. Alex will walk out there, and if he gets a half volley first ball, a half volley's a half volley to Alex, and he'll put it through the fence, not just to it. So I love that style of play from a number 7. They're the kind of guys that can turn a game on their head, and we've seen that from Australian wicket-keepers for a long period of time now, particularly Brad Haddon and Adam Gilchrist in recent times, and I love it, and it's great that Alex is getting the job because I feel like it's a great fit.
Now, I can see Sam Colgan has delved into the stats very quickly to say Alex Carey in first-class cricket, 45 matches, 2,466 runs, average 34.73 with 500s. So, yeah, it's probably fair to say that he's been a more of a standout in white ball cricket, you'd say, so far. Wouldn't you say? But yeah, that's not saying that he can't do it at Test cricket.
No, look, I think if you look at those numbers, particularly in the last 3 years, they'd probably be significantly better than those. So recent form is in his favour. And also, I think you take into consideration a little bit that a lot of players have struggled at times in the last 6-7 years at Adelaide Oval. It's a different wicket to what it used to be. As we see in Test cricket these days, there's a bit more in it for the bowlers. Not many games are making it to late day 4, day 5. So it is a different wicket, Adelaide Oval now. But certainly Alex's form in the last 2 or 3 years would suggest that he's the right guy, and he has been a very consistent performer, and the majority of those hundreds are in probably his last 20 games. So he's ready to go. Get him in and let him settle in for the next 4 or 5 years at least.
Yeah, one of the things I think the broadcasters might be a bit disappointed because I'm expecting the stump mic to be incredibly boring, and that's not a sledge on Alex Carey. But yeah, he's not a chirper. I don't think you'd say.
No, not historically. But if the batter's keen for a chat, he'll get involved sometimes.
There we go. More comments coming in, and look at an absolutely fair opinion, as all opinions are. Margaret Busbridge says, disgusting choice to have Smith in control of anything. And look, he has acknowledged that himself when he spoke upon getting the vice captaincy. He was very much aware that it wouldn't be a popular decision with everyone, and that includes within Australia. And there will be people who aren't happy. One thing I think too, he's going to have to be very self-aware. So if he does something like, you remember Scuffgate last year with, going and marking, doing his shadow batting and marking his spot, the crease, that's the sort of thing that he's going to have to be, I think, a lot more self-aware about, because doing that as a player is one thing. Doing it if Pat Cummins is out too and he's the captain, maybe that's another thing. So I think he's going to have to look at it, but he does seem incredibly aware of that, doesn't he?
Yeah, look, I think you're right. He probably needs to be. I don't think he should have to be, but I think he needs to be, just to make sure that, he's showing the fans, I think, that he is aware that he's hurt people and that he's trying to make amends, and he'll do that as best he can. Look, I've known Steve for a long time, since he first came into the Australian squad when I was in there, and he's a well-meaning young man. He's a guy that I'm staggered that he found himself embroiled in the controversy that he did. I think he's, by all reports and what we understand, he's probably guilty of just turning a blind eye when and at his youngish age, particularly in captaincy terms, you can't afford to do that in high-ranking roles, in managerial roles, whether it's in any industry, and particularly in this Australian cricket team. That captaincy role is held in such high esteem. You just can't be turning a blind eye to anything these days in leadership roles. So he'll have learnt that harsh lesson. We've all made mistakes. No one's perfect. So let's hope that, he takes this second chance. I'm really glad he's got it.
Well, speaking on that, a couple more comments. Jason says it's hard to be perfect. Hey, well, I don't know. I find it pretty easy myself, Jason. Don't have to work.
Yeah, well, I think I'm in Jason's camp.
And one with the other point of view from Sam, Steve Smith, vice captain, is a great call. He has done his time, and that's it. There's going to be those two different sort of views, I think, as we go along, and it'll be up to Steve Smith to kind of just do the job properly and show he's there. He deserves to be there by the way he acts as well. Okay, time for our next topic, and it is India and New Zealand, the joy of a thrilling draw. Wasn't it ever? It was great for me in quarantine, being able to sort of snuggle down on the couch at night and know that was on every night. Any draw, the way that New Zealand's bowlers, some of the best bowling by a pace attack that we've seen in a long time. I thought they did really, really well. Tim Southey especially in that first innings, but then the way that they really toughened out that draw on the last day. I could see Samath Joshi saying it wasn't a draw for India, it was a loss for that. I can understand how you might feel that way, but look, at the end, they were the two teams that were there in the World Test Championship final, and I think in this first test in India, we're seeing why the two of them, I think would deserve it finalists in that. Look at that. If that doesn't explain in the picture the joy of a thrilling draw, what does? Oh, that's so good.
No. I'm all about that photo right there. Test cricket is alive and well, Mel, and I still believe firmly that we've got Virat Kohli to thank for a lot of the excitement and the hype around Test cricket. People were saying 10 years ago that Test cricket was on its way out, it was dead. People were saying the same about ODI cricket. Then the last World Cup final between New Zealand and England happened, and I believe that Test cricket is alive and well, and Virat Kohli's had a huge part to play. But talking about the Test cricket itself, you talked about Tim Southey, what a performance that was from him. Just kept coming and had a huge impact when not many do, with the seam up over there, and that was fantastic. But I think your point's right. These two sides are, and have been the two best in recent history, and it's because they don't roll over. They don't give in when times are tough and when things get sticky. They stand up. They stick their chest out and they go again, and they fight and they scrap and they crawl and they scratch their way to draws like this, to wins. they find a way. And it is just so good to see the top teams in Test cricket going at it in series like this one, and I can't wait for the next Test now.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was great. And you had Shreyas Iyer in there as well. All in all, there were so many good performances across the board. And I know I mentioned New Zealand, but it was pretty much all around. So for me, that was just 5 days of pure joy. I'd love to think that we'd get a game like that in the Ashes, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, time for our fourth topic of the day. Making some big news, all about the retention in the IPL. Australia wins the T20 World Cup, and Glenn Maxwell is the only Australian player to make the retention list, which is pretty interesting, Cal.
It is, absolutely. And look, I think that when you're looking at the IPL auction and the retention lists, the IPL is predictably unpredictable. It is just such a hard read, and trying to get your head around some of the decisions is going to keep you up at night. So take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt. Some teams will want certain players for particular reasons, whether it's because their home conditions suit that style of player. They'll pay over and above what other teams would be willing to. Some players will get overlooked staggeringly. I look back to Alex Hales not being a part of the IPL system after the last auction. That blew me away considering his form. So it's predictably unpredictable, and it's something that makes it such a great spectacle. There's also been chat amongst a couple of teams at least that they feel like, and you were talking to me off air about it, it's done its dash, the IPL 3-year cycle auction. And, you know, you can understand why, can't you? I mean, they want to be able to build a dynasty and a team and plan it over a long period of time and develop players through. And, I'm not sure it's ever going to happen, Mel, because I feel like the BCCI are quite comfortable with how it all looks and the spectacle that is that 3-year auction. And I'm pretty sure the sponsors enjoy it too when they get some of the biggest names in the world holding up the shirts for the cameras when they've gone for over 2 million and their sponsorship logos are all over it. It's something that everyone is gripped by, and I can't see it changing anytime soon, regardless of how much the teams kick up that fight.
Yeah, I can see people asking for, you know, what we think about various retentions and stuff. But I think, well, certainly from my perspective, there's no point in asking me why anyone retains anyone or pays a certain amount for anyone, because honestly, I am always absolutely flummoxed at least, 10 times during an IPL auction. And I know teams try to do various things based on analytics, and every year there seems to be, a certain type of bowler or batter, whatever it is, that is kind of the in thing and quite trendy, and they tend to go for a lot of money. But there's a number of times you've seen a player go for a huge amount to then sit on the sidelines for the best part of the season, or have a kind of a dud season. And then other players who go for base price end up, winning loads of games for their franchise. It's constantly a mystery to me. But I think that mystery, I can kind of love it. I sort of love that as well, because I just go, right, I just don't understand it. And I'm quite happy to always be flummoxed by something like that.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I think the fact that anything goes and anything could happen is such a spectacle.
Yeah. There it is. All right, let's get on to the next one, because we've still got a couple to go. Scorching victory for Perth. I'm going to give you here, Callum Ferguson, your title of Calstradamus yet again, because on this show last week, you predicted that the Strikers were going to win both their playoff matches and get all the way to the final. But then you were a little bit iffy. You sort of weren't happy to predict that they would go the whole way. then that's basically what happened, except in the end, it was Perth Scorchers, and the Strikers looked a little bit nervous from the start. And even though they made a real go of the chase, it kind of felt from that moment it was going to be the Scorchers' game.
Yeah, look, I think it did, didn't it? Yeah, look, it was a great game of cricket. I think both top orders struggled with the extra bounce in Perth. Just it is a ground a bit like the Wacker, different wickets. The Optus Stadium wicket is a little bit more tennis bally on average. I think when I say that, the ball doesn't necessarily skid on with the bounce quite as much as the Wacker does. It tends to trampoline a little bit more off the surface, particularly early with the new ball because there's a thicker grass covering. So we saw both sides struggle a little bit early on with that, but they were able to hold their nerve really well, the Scorchers, I thought, with the bat. And I really feel like that Alana King innings at the end of their innings was a huge one, 14 off 5. If you look at the difference between the two teams, that might have just been enough to put enough pressure on the Strikers to see them falter. And it asked a little bit too much of Maddie Penner at the end of the Strikers' innings. I feel like the Optus and the Wacker have always been pitches that you score heavily on in the second 10 overs of a T20, and that's really what it was in these two innings of that game. And unfortunately for the Strikers, they were so far behind after the first few overs that they weren't able to reel it in, and the Scorchers were worthy winners. They were fantastic throughout the entirety of the tournament, and they thoroughly deserved the win. You're right, I didn't quite back the Strikers to get all the way. I was very bullish on them early in the tournament, no doubt about it. I thought they'd be there right at the end, even when they had a wobble in the middle of the season. I stuck strong with them. I'm proud of that, Mel. But it was a tough loss for them in the final. Scorchers were worthy winners.
You mentioned Alana King in the final. How about one of your girls, Amanda Jade Wellington, 5 for 8 at one point in the playoffs? That is an incredible little battle going on between those two leg spinners. And you look at Georgia Warren being out; they've both done a brilliant job of displaying their wares throughout the WBBL.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, a seesawing affair. I think Amanda Jade might just have Alana King's measure at the moment. Hard to argue with both their seasons, but I think you'd have to probably say Wellington's just ahead. I mean, she just bowled so well. She had a toughish one against the Melbourne Stars. In the first of those two games you talked about. And I feel like that, they just about anyone was going to go that day, the way that the Stars batted. Villani and Lanning both getting away for really the first time of the tournament, and they went big. When they got going, they went big, and I think anyone was going that day. But, the 5 for 8 was just something else, and it was a level above pretty much anything we saw for the tournament. So I think that might just get her over the line when it comes to the crunch.
Yeah. It's coming. There it is. Yeah, I agree. Some of the bowling that we saw from the swing bowlers, quicks, and the spinners, I thought the bowling standard was really impressive throughout this WBBL. It was a joy to watch. Now, let us go to our final topic. While we're on women's cricket, I admit to you, I wanted to get this in because I think Thailand are the unluckiest team in the world at the moment because Thailand women were playing in the qualifiers for the next year's T20 World Cup in New Zealand. They'd beaten Zimbabwe, they'd beaten Bangladesh, they'd beat the USA, they'd been competitive against Pakistan. So they were really well on the way to qualification. They would have been almost certainties. But a COVID outbreak meant teams had to leave. They ended up abandoning the tournament, which meant that instead of being based on results at the qualifiers, the teams that are going to the the One Day World Cup in New Zealand, it goes back to the rankings. Now, Thailand don't have ODI status. They hardly get to play them except at these qualifying tournaments. So it makes it almost impossible for them to rise through the rankings and get themselves into a position. So for me, that was just, you had to feel for them. And you saw some of the social media posts from the players, and they were heartbroken because they'd done all the hard work and arguably deserved their spot. Here we go. They posted all their phones, the team's phones, with the ICC World Cup logo on it, which I thought that was just really sort of sad to see. And I noticed that Ireland go through because of their position in the rankings, and Ed Joyce, who's involved in coaching there, suggested that perhaps, Cal, the ICC should look in the next cycle in including the teams that played in the qualifiers, in that last round of qualifiers, but who didn't get through. So that maybe they should expand that championship so that those teams get the chance to qualify through another means. So I don't know what you think about that as an idea.
Yeah, look, I think that makes some sense. They were on the brink, weren't they? They were so close, and for COVID to ruin all of that is heartbreaking, particularly when they had played well enough, you'd suggest, to be a qualified team. So I think something needs to be adjusted there to make sure that justice prevails, because that's a significant injustice, and I'd love to see the ICC come out and rectify the situation, because they were so close. It breaks your heart. You're right.
I'd love to see some of the full member nations as well invite a team like Thailand to come and play some ODIs, even if the ICC doesn't do it. I know that's going to be impossible in the next year because of the Commonwealth Games and the World Cup. So, but maybe after that, it would be fantastic, because that's a team that came sort of shot up through, managed to make the T20 World Cup, were really impressive in their fielding more than anything, for a team that had had little experience against all these others. They were on their way to beating Bangladesh in last year, and Bangladesh were kind of saved by the rain, because it looked like they had their measure. So it's just wonderful to see a team like Thailand. You talk about wanting to.
It's incredible to think, isn't it? It really is incredible to think. Yeah, I think that we're seeing the game just spread, and we're seeing it in the men's game as well. I think that your point about seeing that the fully fledged nations could potentially start to invite them to play some ODI cricket, I think that's really important. But I think the other thing is also to make sure that we're not throwing them in the deep end. We make sure that they're playing against ranked teams that aren't too far ahead of them in the rankings, because what you don't want to do is throw them too deep into the water and have them drown. I think it's been a great build for them. Let's make sure that it is a build, and it's not just we'll get you halfway up the mountain and then we'll drop you off the top. The 3 metre diving board, well, let's now throw you off the 10th. Let's make sure that it's a nice balanced approach to it, because I think, we've seen in the past, in the men's game in particular, too many heavily one-sided events, whereas if we can keep it a nice balance, then I think we'll see more of these teams really shoot up the rankings. And a nice stepping stone would be to see them given what they probably deserve, and that's a berth in a World Cup.
That is, and just after the duck sound, I'm just going to say that's one reason why I think it would be good for them to play a few ODIs in between World Cups against some of those big teams. So if they actually get to those World Cups, they've got a bit more experience under their belt.
100%.
So,
no, I agree with that.
Yeah. So anyway, that is a massive whip around what's been a huge week again in cricket. Cal, it's always a pleasure, and I'm absolutely amazed that you're looking so chipper and wide awake as a new dad. That is a huge kudos to your wife, Superwoman.
She's doing a great job, trust me.
I absolutely have no doubt, and we look forward to seeing some more baby pics, and might even be lucky to to meet little Spencer in person when I get down to Adelaide and out of
Yeah,
quarantine.
let's hope so.
Out
That'd
of
be great.
quarantine. So thanks to all of you who've dropped by today. Really, really appreciate your input. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe, and share the video if you can. And well, when we next get together, I think it might just be the eve of the Ashes, so it might be exciting. Hopefully, there's been a little bit more sunshine up here, and they can get the pitch ready.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, until then, enjoy your cricket over the next week, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.